All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. We're tackling a massive global problem today, dangerous belly fat, and I'm going to reveal a time-efficient, scientifically proven fix for it. Look, if you've ever felt like you're just putting in endless, soul-crushing hours on the treadmill with zero to show for it in the mirror, or more importantly, on your health markers, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're unpacking a comprehensive meta-analysis that literally flips the script on traditional cardio. We're getting a highly focused, data-backed blueprint for burning stubborn fat.
2.1 billion. That staggering number represents the individuals worldwide who are currently overweight or obese. To put that into perspective, we're talking about roughly 30% of the entire global population facing a cascade of serious metabolic risks. You see, the escalating obesity epidemic over the last decade isn't just about aesthetics. It's brought with it a massive spike in metabolic disorders. Think insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. But to truly understand this problem, we've got to look a bit closer at the fat itself, because, as you'll see, where your body stores it changes absolutely everything. So here's the absolutely crucial point. Not all fat is created equal. Subcutaneous fat, the stuff you can pinch just under your skin, has a high storage capacity, but it's relatively safe. Visceral fat, on the other hand, well, that's a completely different story. This stuff actively promotes chronic inflammation. It physically wraps around your internal organs and is highly metabolically active. In visceral fat, greater lipolysis leads to higher free fatty acid secretion, which dumps straight into your liver. Even worse, it releases dangerous pro-inflammatory factors, things like tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin-6. It's this deep visceral fat that is so highly correlated with cardiovascular risks and insulin resistance. We absolutely have to target it.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the stubborn fat problem, then decode the meta-analysis, look at HIIT and body fat, compare running versus cycling, and finish up with the intensity twist.
Part 1. The stubborn fat problem. For years, the standard guidelines have pushed moderate intensity continuous training, or MICT. You know the drill. Think of your standard 45-minute jog or a long, kind of mind-numbing session on the elliptical. Now, to be totally fair, traditional moderate cardio might be great for your heart, and you can keep it up for a long time. It definitely has positive cardiovascular and metabolic effects. But here is the harsh reality hidden in the data. When it comes to actually shrinking your waistline, it takes hours and often leads to little or literally zero actual fat loss. It simply isn't an efficient tool for eliminating those dangerous, stubborn, visceral fat deposits we just talked about.
Which brings us to part 2. Decoding the meta-analysis.
So we desperately needed a better, faster way. Enter researchers Florie Maillard, Bruno Pereira, and Natalie Bousseau. Back in 2017, they published this massive review looking for the absolute truth in the data. And the sheer scale of their work is brilliant. They didn't just look at one tiny group of people. They analyzed over 600 individuals across dozens of rigorous studies to form a definitive, rock-solid consensus. The subject pool was perfectly balanced between men and women, with an average age of about 39. Now, one super important detail here. They specifically excluded sprint interval training, or SIT. SIT involves those all-out super maximal efforts where you're pushing past 100% of your maximal oxygen consumption. Instead, they focused strictly on high-intensity interval training, HIIT, which operates near maximal effort, sitting right between 80 and 100% of your peak heart rate. It's really fascinating to see just how meticulously these scientists filtered through thousands of records to isolate only the absolute best data. They literally started with over 1,100 potential articles from major electronic databases. Then, through a really strict screening process, checking for compatible parameters and totally complete data, they tossed out hundreds of flawed or irrelevant papers. They narrowed it down to just 39 high-quality studies for their final synthesis. Honestly, this is the gold standard of scientific review. Moving right along to part 3, HIIT and body fat. Now, if you were to plot out all these multiple studies at once using what scientists call a forest plot, the results are staggering. Imagine a vertical line representing zero or no effect. The vast majority of the data points from these studies overwhelmingly lean to the side of fat reduction. In the scientific community, a negative effect size here is exactly what we want. It means the exercise actively decreased the outcome measure. So in plain English, this definitively proves that HIIT consistently and reliably works for total fat loss across completely different populations. Distilling all that complex data down into hard facts, the numbers are just incredibly encouraging. On average, HIIT reliably shaved off about 2 kilograms of total fat mass.
But even more importantly, and this is the big one, it directly and significantly reduced those highly dangerous abdominal and visceral fat areas. And the data showed absolutely zero difference between males and females. It works beautifully for both. Interestingly, when the researchers broke the numbers down by body weight, they found these fat loss benefits were highly successful, specifically in overweight and obese individuals. It's an incredibly powerful tool for the people who really need it most.
Okay, part 4, running versus cycling. I want you to actively engage with this for a second. Just guess. If you only had 20 minutes to work out today, and your primary goal was to improve your metabolic health by torching stubborn belly fat, would you hop on the stationary bike? Or would you lace up and hit the pavement for a run? Think about it. Let's see what the science actually says. Well, the data actually splits the victory in a really fascinating way. Running took the crown for decreasing total body fat mass, and crucially, it was significantly more effective at burning away that deep, dangerous, visceral fat wrapped right around your organs. However, cycling actually maintained a unique edge when it came to reducing general abdominal fat mass. So the takeaway? Both are highly effective, but if specifically targeting that critical inflammation-causing visceral fat is your #1 priority, running intervals might just be your absolute best bet. And finally, part 5, the intensity twist. Now for the absolute most surprising twist of this entire explainer. We need to talk about exactly how hard you need to push your body. This is the true climax of the research, and honestly, it's pretty counterintuitive. The researchers stratified the data by target intensity, training above 90% of your peak heart rate versus training just below 90%. You'd think harder is always better, right? Well, pushing yourself past 90% of your peak heart rate was indeed the most successful for reducing total whole body fat. But, and this is a massive but, slightly lower intensities, still high intensity, mind you, but keeping it below that 90% threshold, were actually far superior for melting away abdominal and visceral fat. So you don't necessarily need to completely max out your heart rate to get the profound metabolic benefits of shedding that dangerous visceral fat. And here is a quick surprising fact that you absolutely must keep in mind to stay motivated. Standard scales, skin fold calipers, even basic body scanners like standard DXA and impedance, they often completely miss this progress. The researchers found that it took highly advanced CT and MRI technology to finally prove this deep visceral fat was actually vanishing. What does that mean for you? It means you could be doing your HIIT workouts, feeling healthier, reversing insulin resistance, and losing deep visceral fat, all without the bathroom scale budging even a single ounce. The fat is melting exactly where it matters most, even if you can't see it on a basic scale. So the science is loud and clear. Taking less time doesn't mean getting fewer results. HIIT is a highly potent, scientifically proven weapon against the most dangerous fat in your entire body. So armed with the knowledge that you don't even have to completely max out your heart rate and knowing exactly which exercise targets your deepest fat, what's your plan? Are you going to keep grinding away on the treadmill for hours, or are you ready to work smarter this week?